Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Inner Power Training once again. We're sponsored once again today by LifeWave, these amazing patches that I've been using. I have one right here called glutathione that I've been wearing now for a few weeks, getting tremendous results. And here's Kevin Fitzgerald, who's going to be telling us today about his amazing trip to Egypt with none other than David Wilcock. If any of you haven't heard of him, he's been around for years talking about ancient civilizations and all sorts of fascinating things. And Kevin is going to talk to us about going to the Great Pyramid and other parts of Egypt with him and some of the things that happened there. I can't wait to hear the story. So welcome, Kevin.
Hey, Rebecca, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah. So you want to hear about my Egypt?
Yes, I'm going to hear about Egypt, but first I want to make another announcement. Yesterday, Jeff Mara podcast interviewed me. Jeff, Jeffmara podcast. He's a YouTuber, and that is coming out later today, if you want to catch that one, which is also a good interview. And the last time I met with Kevin, we talked about Dr. Emoto's water crystals, and that was a really interesting topic because it ties right in with these amazing crystal patches that we're wearing. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about Egypt today, Kevin. I can't wait to hear your stories.
Yeah, all right. Well, I spoke before how I did David's trips, around the world,
right?
His secret journeys. And one of the trips David always wanted to do, because Edgar Cayce talked a lot about the Great Pyramids, right, and going to Egypt. And he never was able to go there himself. But of course, David is known as being the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. So David really wanted to go to Egypt. So we took a group of about 32 people on an 11-day trip of Egypt, where we did the major temples like Abu Simbel, Luxor, the Great Pyramids. We stayed at the Mina House Oberoi, which, imagine being at a hotel where you open your window and the entire Great Pyramid fills your window. You can see the Great Pyramid from your window. It used to be a sultan's private hunting lodge. So, we did a cruise on the Nile for 4 days. So it was a very, very powerful trip.
That sounds amazing. Do you know, I actually have in my possession, my mother had a distant cousin who traveled to Egypt. She wrote a little note in the box. It's a piece of the Great Pyramid that she picked up off the ground and some little stones from the foot of the Sphinx. And the note says 1903. Wow. Yeah, 1903, she went over there. And it must have been fun and adventurous to go to places like that back in the early 1900s. But I have it in my possession. It's kind of mystical.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I was going to different temples, I actually took some sand samples from each one.
Oh,
so I had a memento. Yeah.
Ooh, it
was really cool.
Yeah.
But one of the highlights of the trip was the Great Pyramid, of course, and a lot of people don't understand the real purpose of the Great Pyramid. So the Great Pyramid is really an initiation chamber, right? So imagine a collider of energy that's pulling the torsion field energy from the earth, right? The sacred geometry of the pyramid is pulling up that energy from the earth. So you have the king's chamber and you have the queen's chamber, which correlate to the pineal gland, the king's chamber, and the pituitary gland, the queen's chamber. So it's the masculine and the feminine, right? So the mystical marriage within is when you raise the energy up, the Kundalini serpent energy, from the base of your spine into your head centers. That was the purpose of the pyramid, was to do that. That's why if you look at Egyptian priests and priestesses, they have the cobra coming out of the third eye in their headdresses with the expanded hood. So the cobra represents expanded consciousness. So coming out of the third eye, you have expanded consciousness. So that's why we went.
Why do you think they picked the cobra of all things?
Because it has the hood that expands.
Oh, okay.
And that symbolizes expanded consciousness. And in the cobra, when you play music, it does what? It rises up to the
Right.
to the frequency of the music. So when Kundalini is the sleeping serpent, known as the sleeping coiled serpent at the base of your spine. So as you raise your consciousness, because you're tuning to your soul song, that raises the Kundalini and ultimately brings it into the head centers, and the mystical marriage of the pineal and pituitary happen. That's the explosion of enlightenment. So you have the higher energy coming down from your soul star, and then you have the Kundalini energy rising up, and they meet in the head, and that's enlightenment.
Right. And I've heard if you're not ready for it, your head might explode.
Well, I'll tell you a story about that. So
Okay.
Napoleon, when he conquered Egypt, he heard about the mystical powers of the Great Pyramid.
Right.
So Napoleon decided to spend a night in the Great Pyramid himself. So he went inside the Great Pyramid, spent the whole night there, and the next morning when he came out, he was white as a ghost. So his generals came up to him and said, "What happened? You're white as a ghost. You don't look good." And all that Napoleon said was, it was the scariest time he's ever experienced in his life. And now this is a guy who goes to war, right?
Yeah, he was pretty
Because what happened is Napoleon was not heart-centered, he was head-centered, he was ego-centered. So when he experienced these energies brought to him lower astral forms.
Oh,
Because he wasn't an initiate, he wasn't a true initiate. Only true initiates from all over the world would come to ancient Egypt to have the final aspect of their initiation, which is opening the third eye. But they had done a lot of purification work first, of being centered in the heart. And so you don't want to go into an initiation chamber like the Great Pyramid unless you're centered in the heart. If you're ego-centered, head-centered, you're just going to experience a nightmare or a lower astral
interesting.
entity.
And that's why the higher teachings, people always wonder, well, how come people aren't getting all the information about, metaphysics and spirituality? You kind of have to go through initiations to be ready for it, right?
Yeah, and every initiation prepares you for your rebirth, which is basically moving you from a body identification based on fear and separation to a spirit or I am identification that's based on unconditional love and light.
Which anyone is capable of achieving.
Of course, everyone has to achieve it at some point, some lifetime.
Exactly. Some people just take detours, and you have forever to get there, but just depends on how fast you want to make it.
Yeah, keep in mind, there's no time in eternity. So what might take 1,000,000 years in time is nothing in eternity.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So tell us about what it was like being inside the Great Pyramid.
So when you go inside the Great Pyramid, there's a descending pathway. So if you're claustrophobic, I don't recommend you do it. So you got to hunch over and you walk down this descending passageway, which is symbolic of the descent of the soul into matter. So you get to the base of the pyramid, and then you have to go up an ascending stairway, which you'll pass the Queen's chamber, and then you go into the King's chamber. And in the King's chamber is a granite sarcophagus, which represents rebirth, death and rebirth. So in the initiation, which the priests of ancient Egypt and priestess would basically do their ceremony, an initiate would lay in that granite sarcophagus and would symbolize death and rebirth. And so it's the King's chamber is perfectly acoustic. So if there's a Egyptian guy there that monitors everything, and people coming and going. So if you tip him a few bucks, he'll let you lay in the granite sarcophagus. So we did, and we had a toning ceremony, and David did a prayer, and it was very nice, very powerful for the people present. And we did our own little Great Pyramid initiation.
Nice. And did you hear any voices while you were in there, or feel any presence of entities?
No, well, everyone had different experiences. For me personally, I had a lot of downloads throughout the entire trip.
Right.
So I had clairsentient downloads, claircognizant downloads, um, in the Great Pyramid, and also as we cruise down the Nile.
Mm. Now, when you're there, do the local Egyptians that give you the tours and everything have an explanation for how the Great Pyramid?
No, the local Egyptians think it's just a burial place for a pharaoh. Most of the local Egyptians aren't aware of the esoteric knowledge of
Yeah,
ancient Egypt. Very much more egocentric than the ancient Egyptians were.
right. Now, because David is the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, Edgar Casey did mention that there was something hidden away in the Great Sphinx, right?
Yeah, the Hall of Records.
Right, which they haven't discovered yet, I understand. And
Well,
then,
they may have discovered it, but it hasn't been revealed to the populace, and it might not ever be revealed to the populace. Who knows? But they're constantly discovering things in Egypt, so we'll see.
I've heard that. I mean, it's amazing how they'll find another amazing structure underground that they didn't know was there. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And you go to Valley of the Kings, which is where they actually buried pharaohs. That's where King Tut's tomb is, and Nefertiti's tomb is located there. Really amazing. So it's like going through a desert with hills, and each of those hills, is a chamber tomb that you can walk down, filled with hieroglyphs of the ancient Egyptians that are buried there in the valley. It's called the Valley of the Kings.
Mm, mm,
That's where they actually buried them.
mm. And some people like to spend the night in the Great Pyramid, like Napoleon did, right? Do they still do that?
They don't allow that unless it's a very, very, you probably would have to grease the right, politicians or,
Yeah.
people to do that. I have not heard of anyone spending a night recently. I'm sure it's happened, but,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they probably keep it to themselves, whatever they experience.
Absolutely. Wow. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we were going down the Nile, so, the Nile is awesome. And, I'll tell you an interesting story that happened to me on the Nile. So I had to do with a past life experience. So there was a woman on this trip that I could not take my eyes off of, right? And I was married at the time. So it was a physical attraction, but it was much, much more than that. But it was bothering me. So like 4 days in, I'm like, when you're in a trip like this, everyone's there for spiritual purification. So you're very open, right? Because,
Yeah.
you want to share stuff with each other. So I said, look, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to flirt with you, but I can't take my eyes off of you. Do you feel anything? Do you see anything going on? And she goes, no, but she goes, I'll have Amara, who is her roommate, who is a psychic, and what she would do is she would tone over a body, and then she would visualize past lives as a result of the toning. So we're on the cruise, and so she went down to Amara, and she had a session with Amara, right? So I'm thinking she's going to come right back up, and that night, no Anne Marie, and I'm like, huh. And then next morning at breakfast, no Anne Marie, no Amara, nowhere to be found. And we're a small group, right? We're about to disembark and go to sightsee for the day.
Right.
They don't join us. Not there. We come back, having dinner, gone all day. No Anne Marie, no Amara. I'm like, okay, this is not good. I got to go knock on the cabin door, right? So I knock on the cabin door, and there's Amara and Anne Marie laying in bed. And she basically said, Kevin, what happened was I did a session with Anne Marie, and when I did the session, every pore in her body opened. She was sweating, vomiting, diarrhea, everything. It was a massive energetic purification. And she goes, what I saw was in an Egyptian lifetime, you were her lover and her protector, but in that lifetime, she was buried alive.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why I couldn't take my eyes off her. I was like, it was really bothering me that I could not take my eyes off her. And so when she was told that, it triggered massive emotional cleanse, which is probably the reasons why, one of the main reasons she was attracted to go on the trip, and to clear her field from that energy from that lifetime.
So had you had a sense before this that you had a life in Egypt?
No.
No?
No, I had a strong attraction to go there, but no.
Right. There is something about it, though, that many people seem to have had past lives there. One night I had a really vivid dream, one of those real dreams. I had the black hair with the bangs and the black, I looked like an Egyptian. I had a bracelet around my upper arm that was like a snake.
Yeah.
And I was told in my dream that I'd just been initiated into something that allowed me to be 100% psychic forever. And I'm very psychic. Yeah, it was a good dream, but it was like,
well, I think a lot of the people, a lot of your audience probably drawn to watch this video have had past lives in Egypt.
I think a lot of us have. Another time when I was working at that beautiful church in Boston, which was magnificent, I was passing this colleague that I was working with, and I got a flashback that she and I used to work in one of the pyramids or temples in Egypt together in a similar fashion.
Wow. I love that stuff. I love when that stuff happens. You know, I think those are such treasured moments when you have flashbacks or glimpses or surreal, expansive experiences, I think are awesome.
Well, we've all been around forever, so we've had all these crazy experiences. And,
no doubt.
It's fascinating. Yeah. Was there anything else you'd like to tell us about your trip? That's a good one, though, about that woman. Did you and she stay in touch?
No. Once the trip was over, that was because I was married at the time. I had no interest in being with her, and it was just one of those things where we just had a friendship.
Buried her alive. Why was she buried alive?
I didn't delve into it.
Oh, okay.
That's all that I was told, and that was a very emotional thing for her. A lot of trauma, obviously, for both of us, especially for her, and it was a major release for her.
How interesting that she was traveling with a psychic too.
Yeah, her roommate Amara was a psychic, a very good psychic. And it's great when you travel on trips like that, it draws people from all backgrounds. You'd have lawyers, judges, professionals, psychics, all different types of people, and they all come together with the same intent to learn esoteric knowledge. So you meet some really interesting people, and I love sacred journeys. They're just such a privilege.
Oh, we should put together a trip for our followers this year, next year anyway.
Next year.
Yeah.
Next year.
I know a lot of people that want to go to Egypt that haven't been yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd go back to Egypt. You got to learn. You got to say alaikum shalom, shalom alaikum.
Oh, what does that mean?
That's the greeting. I see the God in you.
Alaikum shalom, shalom.
Alaikum.
Alaikum. Nice.
That's how you greet everyone.
Sounds like fun. Well,
it would be.
We'll have to plan something. But once again, though, we're sponsored by LifeWorks, and this X39 patch does the trick.
Yeah.
Check it out.
I got my patches on right now. You can't see them. I got one on my belly, below my belly button, and behind my neck. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. And I'm about to go to the gym and have an awesome workout. So thanks for having me, Rebecca. I appreciate it.
Well, great. And once again, if anybody wants to ask us any questions about anything, just, communicate in the link below.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in LifeWave and getting more information on the patches, then if they comment and leave an email or they want to talk to me directly, I'll be more than happy to talk to people directly.
Yes, yes. You can always send me an email, rebeccatripp.com, and send me your information to connect with you, and we'll get in touch and just give you more information that you might need in order to figure out if it's the right thing, if it might help you.
Yep. It's
Really?
it's crystal-based technology, which I love. I love nano crystal-based technology that because we're light beings, and it basically amplifies the body's own infrared light. So I'm a huge believer in it, and I have my 86-year-old mother on the technology. It's awesome.
It is awesome.
No
Yeah,
chemicals, no drugs, all holistic.
that's the way to go in the Great Awakening, because
Yep.
we're all lighting up our
Yep.
light bodies as we move along.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. All right, Kevin, have fun at the gym.
All right, Rebecca, thanks for having me on.
Right. Bye-bye.
God bless.